You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Marina Buksov, and I'm a functional medicine pharmacist in New York. I'm also a clinical herbalist and an integrative health coach specializing in mindfulness and empowerment. I'm on a mission to transform the way we approach healthcare by bridging the wisdom of traditional medicine with modern practice. And in this podcast, I will be highlighting guests who do just that. I'm constantly inspired by them, and I know you will be as well. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have a very special guest for you to kick this season off. Dr. Njideka Olatunde, who is a visionary and creative energy behind Focus on Healing Wellness Institute. She's an accomplished naturopath and a leading authority on the cultural integration of traditional health practices with conventional medicine for mind, body, and emotional wellness. She's an author, acclaimed speaker, podcast host, master reflexologist, pain relief educator, and consultant who has helped thousands of chronic pain sufferers relieve pain first with addiction and medication-free pain relief treatment, using the power of touch and reflexology as an alternative in addressing the opioid epidemic. So without further ado, welcome, Njideka.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Wow. What an impressive bio. And I would love to start at the beginning of your journey and just ask where you grew up and how you came to do this work.
Okay, which really laid the foundation for what I do. As a child, I grew up on what's known as home remedies. And growing up on home remedies back during that time, doctors actually did home visits. And as a child, when I saw doctors doing home visits, to me, they were healers. I said, oh, wow, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And by the time I got to college, I got a rude awakening that that's not what doctors were doing. And it caused me to change my career, and I became a social worker. And while I was doing social work, one of the things that really concerned me was the fact that everyone was going to the emergency room for healthcare. And I said, something's wrong with this picture. So what's happened to prevention? And that kind of sparked the spirit again to want to become a doctor. And this also happened at the time when alternative and therapeutic approaches were coming on the scene. So it opened the door for me to be able to go back to school and become a naturopathic practitioner. So when I became a practitioner, I wanted to add a service to my practice, and that became reflexology. But how that happened was a whole nother story, but I'll give you kind of a quick overview. I did what was called a vision quest. And when you do a vision quest, that's like, when you connect with nature and all that's in the environment. But I did it with Native Americans. And after, we went through the quest, and I came down from the mountain spot that they placed me on. And I was talking about all of the birds, the butterflies, and all the animals that were coming around me. And they gave me the translation of that to mean you have to do something with your hands. So I thought that meant massage therapy. And when I went to massage therapy school, I didn't like massage, but I liked reflexology. And from there, that became my journey and became my passion in terms of what I do with reflexology and relieving pain.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like it was quite a journey and lots of twists and turns along the way.
Yes.
And I really commend you for following through on those things and going to school on those different aspects. And it sounds like, you came out on the other side of it with a bunch of tools in your toolkit, and seeing the person holistically. because you had the social work and you had the
Yes.
naturopathic and the healing touch. It all kind of opens up different ways that we can work with the body and with the person. So I'm curious how you decided to specialize in pain specifically.
Oh, thank you for asking me that question because that's real, it's real special to me. How I got involved in pain was I lost a lot of colleagues, a lot of friends, and even some family members because of pain. And one of the things that I recognized about pain was that after everybody had, exhausted all of their pain medication, they were still in pain and they were seeking solutions to relieving the pain. And I started realizing that we need to look at the touch component. And that's what kind of opened the door where I spent a great deal of time doing research and studying how to use reflexology. And I put together a protocol of relieving pain first before treatment. And that happened as a result of when you do the business side of what we do, a lot of times we don't look at the business side of our healthcare practices. And when someone goes to the store to buy something and they want something specifically, they're going to go for what they want. And that applies to us as practitioners. When our patients and clients come to us, most of the time they come to a practitioner because they're in pain and they're seeking relief. And so when they come to us, what I did in my practice, I did the one thing that most practitioners miss. That's a key in terms of when your clients come to see you. And I call that listening. I listen. And by listening, I'm letting everybody talk to me about, their pain experience, what's going on with it. But with that, what's important to me, it's a key to let me know what is the stress factors that are the contributors to the pain. Because a lot of times we don't pay attention to the pain stress connection, which plays a big role in terms of pain that eventually turns into some type of defined illness. So by listening and hearing all of that, I was able to put together the pain relief first before treatment, because what I'm doing now is after they've talked about their experience, I use the reflexology therapy. And what that does is it assists the body in releasing its own natural pain relievers. And that's the whole process. When that happens, now my patients and clients are no longer feeling the pain. And by not feeling the pain, we can now move to the next phase, which I like to call integrative approaches, because there's no one therapy that can do it all. It has to be an integration of combination of therapies based on that particular health problem. So that's kind of how I got into focusing specifically on pain by addressing what clients come to me first for, and then we work on putting together treatment. And when you do that, your patients and clients are more apt to want to work with you in terms of getting to their wellness. And that's a real key component, because clients and patients have to understand, which is what I always say, I'm not a healer. What I am is I assist the body in the healing process. And that's what I do. And that's how my patient clients and I work together in oneness, because it's a two-way street. It's not just me doing this and you're receiving. We're both giving and receiving at the same time.
Wow, that is quite a profound approach. And
it's really simple, right? I mean, a lot of the things we talk about in the show and what I talk about with colleagues, it's like these simple concepts, but they're not very easy because they're not very common, because our society and the systems that we have don't really implement those things, like the listening, like you mentioned, or even the pain that people feel in order to, like you said, take action, right? A lot of the times when people finally seek help, it's because they're in pain of some sort.
Yes.
And like the physical pain that is mediated in the body, I mean, anybody who has ever had pain, whether it's acute or chronic of any kind,
Yes.
can understand how debilitating that is, right? And how
Yes.
profound, how it can impact all parts of your life, and really in a negative way if the
Yes.
pain is there and it's such a big stressor on the body that you're feeling this pain and having to deal with it. Then it kind of changes your whole outlook on life. It can change your personality. It can lead to addictive behaviors or any kind of behaviors, so that, people are just seeking solutions for their pain. And we don't have that many pain options in conventional medicine. We don't have good pain options for that matter. Like the opioid epidemic, which you mentioned, this is why it happened, because we didn't have really good pharmaceutical interventions like we have for every other aspect of medicine. Right now, conventional medicine is all about pharmaceutics. It's almost like these words became interchangeable, that the medical system relies on the pharmaceutical industry, because it's like when you go to a doctor, you most likely will get a prescription of some sort of chemical, not even a plant. In the past, I'm an herbalist and a pharmacist. In the past, it was the same profession. And now we are just so dependent on this system that tells us, okay, you get a diagnosis from a doctor, then you get a drug from the pharmacy, and then your insurance gets billed. That's just kind of how the conventional assembly line of medicine seems to be working now. And when it comes to pain, there's not that many pharmaceutical drugs out there. That, first of all, there's not that many classes out there. It's really just the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, the steroidal anti-inflammatories, which may have a role, and really the opioids, and really they all have side effects. So
that is so, and that's what makes it so sad, because we're not looking at we're dealing with human beings. And because we're dealing with human beings, everybody is different. And because they're different, we have to learn how to connect with their uniqueness. Because the one thing that's not understood is that your pain did not come overnight. It was a process. It's been leading up to this. And the body, in terms of how it's designed, gives you a pain as a warning that we got some stress going on in the body that needs to be attended to. And if it's not, like debilitating, okay, well, I'll get over this. And what happens is then the body's going to say, okay, you didn't listen to me when I gave you the warning, so now I've got to put you down so that we now can deal with this problem. And what I tell my clients / patients, the key that they have to remember is that when we talk about the pain-stress connection, what we're really talking about is something that has happened outside of your body that you have brought in and internalized. And when you do this, what happens is it starts breaking down various systems, various organs in the body, using that as an outlet to try to release itself. And because that's not how you normally release, you're causing now the pain problems in the joints, in the bones, in the muscles, wherever. And we've got to understand that everything that's going on in our lives affects us mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, as well as physically. And the way to be about addressing that is why I bring in the power of touch. Because in the book that I wrote, Reflexology Today, A Family Affair, I had the opportunity, and which leads into what I'm talking about, I had the opportunity to study reflexology in China. And when I went to China, one of the things that I learned, which was very important, is that the doctors spend anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half with their patients before they even do a treatment. And the reason is because if I come to you with a health problem, now I got to bring my whole family in, because we've got to work to put together a prevention in place so that the other family members will not experience this problem. And that was a confirmation for me, because I believed that at least one member in every household should know some basic reflexology pain points to relieve pain as an alternative to medication. So which means that now you have a solution that's available to you 24/7, and it's found in the power of your hands. And all of us, we don't realize it, but all of us know how to do reflexology, but we don't know that we know how to do it. And that's what's important when we start talking about we have the power, which is, I like what you talked about, from dealing from pharmaceutical to herbs, in terms of it's our power to take back control of how we heal, how we relieve pain, and just how we live, period, as it relates to health and wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the concept of autonomy and sovereignty, it really depends and relies on having choices, right?
Yes.
Because if we don't know that we have choices, then we'll just keep on making the same choice that we think is the only option available. So
Yes.
having that awareness that there are these other methods is the first step. And then you choosing those things, knowing the risks and the benefits, is going to help you
Yes.
feel more empowered in that choice. And the problem is, like you said, people don't know, they're not aware, because the conventional model, again, doesn't really offer those choices. So even if they go get a first opinion, second opinion, they might get the same kind of advice, which is just, okay, well, let's try this pharmaceutical, let's try that pharmaceutical, right? And that's not the only thing out there. So the first thing is gain more awareness of the different approaches, right? And the fact that
Yes.
you traveled and you spent so much time in these different schools, and all your research qualifies you to give more options to people and empower them with those options. It's like
And
the other side of
yes.
responsibility, right? Is the
Yes.
power that you get.
And that's what's real important, because this is what I say to a lot of my clients. I talk to them. First of all, we're so disconnected with our bodies, and we don't, because we're disconnected, we don't know the systems and the organs all work collectively together in a cooperative manner. And the example I always use is, we know more about our automobiles than we do about our bodies. And the automobile is designed as a replica of our bodies. It's the same operational system. But the difference is, when you're dealing with your automobile and you take it to your mechanic, you tell your mechanic, well, such and such a thing is wrong. The mechanic automatically knows that I have to go to this particular part, replace this, or I need to rebuild this or something like that. But that's what a mechanic does. We have to stop taking our bodies to our doctors and presenting it like it's an automobile and expect the doctor, if you say you got a back problem, and the doctor's supposed to know automatically what I need to do for that back problem right now. It doesn't work like that. And so if we understand that, because one of the things that I know about conventional medicine, they are excellent in providing a diagnosis. And once you get a diagnosis, now you need to connect that with the body systems that is in stress. An example would be if you got a diagnosis that you had asthma, then you need to think about what body system is having a problem that's connected with asthma. So the next thing you would say, my lungs or my respiratory system. So then you look at, okay, maybe my respiratory system needs some cleansing. Maybe my respiratory system may need some vitamins or minerals, nutrients may be needed for it to build it up. That's the way we got to start looking at our body in terms of when you get a diagnosis. Focus on that system. Start studying that system. What is it that I'm doing that I need to strengthen that system so it can now get back to its normal state of healthiness and being well? And that also ties into, if I'm doing reflexology to relieve pain, and that comes up as a symptom, now that means I'm going to have to look at what other integrative therapies can I use or can I refer to as a treatment plan. It may mean going to an herbalist to see what what herbs will be beneficial to strengthen my lungs, to strengthen my respiratory system. It may mean you need to go and do exercise. We need to find what kind of exercises that will be beneficial for strengthening that, your breathing, your respiratory, and all of that. It's specific things. And that ties into what you were talking about, where we look at pharmaceuticals only have one focus, but it's a multi-approach. And that's why integrative approaches is the best solution in terms of helping us to get back to optimum health and wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. And listeners of this podcast, I'm sure, are familiar with what you mentioned at the very beginning, which is the revolving door healthcare system of the emergency room that we're seeing. Mm-hmm. And this is because we're only addressing something as an emergency. And again, conventional medicine is so good at that, like diagnosing it, treating it on the spot. But what they are not as good as is helping people to live a lifestyle that is going to prevent those problems from coming back. Because just, addressing a symptom, much like pain is a symptom that we were talking about, it's your body communicating that something is not right. We can't just address the symptom or suppress the symptom because it's not addressing the root cause or what's underlying that process, why the system is giving us those symptoms in the first place. So it's this two-way communication that has to happen. And I love the analogy of us being kind of like a car, but not really, because we have extra parts. So we have the mind-body connection, and we also have spirit. So how do we address those things in a holistic way? And that means we have to look at all of those at once, like we always talk about, right? And the conventional model seems to separate them, right? We have psychology and then we have regular medicine. And those are two separate things. But without looking at that mind-body connection, we're not able to utilize the power of how they influence each other.
Exactly. And that is so important, because once we understand that, now the body will work for you and the body will work with you. I often say, remember when we were going through, the pandemic? And because of the pandemic, here's my unscientific research study. I believe that the majority of the people that made transition during that particular time period was because of the lack of touch. People could not connect with their family members, and that's a form of touching. People could not feel the physical touch of their family members. People could not see the facial expressions of their family members. And all of these things relate to touch. And that's why touch becomes so important in our healing dynamics. As practitioners, when we spend the time listening, that's a form of touch. When we can smile and give our patients and clients a smile, give them a big pat on the back, that's a form of touch, which is healing. And once we understand that, it activates the body to do what it normally does, releases its own natural pain relievers, starts sending to the particular organs and cells what's needed to be about cleansing, if that's needed. All of these things go on inside our bodies. So once we understand and respect that, we're now on the road to taking back control of healing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits to what, and so that we can become what we were created to be.
Yeah, I love that. And what you're mentioning is the naturopathic concept that the body heals itself, right?
Yes.
So the best thing that we can do is really give it the resources and get out of the way of obstructing that healing process. And
Yes.
this is the big issue that I was also bringing up earlier, is that we're just not taught to do that for the body. We're just taught to push ourselves, push, 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 go, go, go,
Yes.
go, not
Yes.
give the body rest, not sleep, focus on work, have an unbalanced diet, have an unbalanced stress and lifestyle regimen. And then we expect the body to heal, beyond these obstacles.
Yeah.
So how have you addressed this in your practice to really assist the body in its healing mechanisms when it comes to pain?
Okay, first and foremost, what I do, which is a little different, my practice, because of the pandemic, it's virtual. So what I do is I show my patient and clients what they need to do, what reflexology steps that they can do, and how to share it with their family in being a part of their healing process. So by doing that, now I'm teaching them how to be empowered. I'm teaching them how to see self-help as the key to wellness, not to depend on me, not to depend on another practitioner, to know that once you are involved in the process, that's how the healing begins. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When we talk about reflexology, for those who may not know what it is, reflexology is the art and science of working specific nerve ending points that are found on the hands, the feet, and the ears to relieve stress, improve circulation, reduce pain, those kind of things. But that's what reflexology is known to do. Now, remember when I said that everyone knows reflexology and don't know that they know it? Well, when you were a child, or you may have done it with your children, there's a little thing called this little piggy. And if you know about this little piggy, you're turning each of the toes. And by turning the toes, that's where the nerve endings to your head are, and in your fingers. They're in the toes and fingers. So by turning those little toes on as a child, turning those, you're activating the nerve endings to bring about rest if the child needs to go to sleep, or calm them down to be about bringing down that energy so that they can be in a calm state. That's just the basic. Another basic is, think about this. What happens when you hit that funny bone in your elbow? What do? What's the first thing you do?
Well, I usually scream.
There you go. The first thing is what I call verbal release. What verbal release does is sends a message to the brain, trauma in an area of the body. Then what's the second thing you do?
Yeah, so first it's the ow that really, really hurts. And then I usually will put my finger on that point and apply pressure.
Exactly. and start rubbing on it. Message goes to the brain now, release the body's natural pain relievers, endorphins. That's the process. And that's the same process that we use in reflexology. So we've all known how to do it, but we've never understood that. And so by connecting that and showing how that works hand in hand in relaxing, relieving, and reducing, that's how I empower. I'm focusing more on empowering my clients to be about taking back control of their life from pain by just using the gift that's in their hands. And that's the process.
Wow. I'm also thinking about like Kiss the Boo Boo, where if a child gets hurt,
Yes.
you hug them, you kiss them because
Yes.
you draw that tension away from the pain and you flood the body with the oxytocin and like the feeling good so that it kind of numbs and dulls the attention that we have on the pain as well.
That's it. That's it. And that's the key. And that's where you start looking at medication free without side effects, because the body will show you the way to be about getting back to release, getting back to a normal state. You defined it. That's it. That's the whole process. The other problem when we start looking at people with chronic pain, they've been in pain for so long that they don't even remember what their body felt like to not be in pain. And that's where we're looking at relieving pain from a mental and emotional state, because now you're stuck there. And so what we have to do now is turn the whole pain dynamics around to look at how can I strengthen myself mentally and emotionally from the bondage that I have of physical pain. That's a whole nother process. And reflexology can work on that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm thinking about other types of physical and touch therapies that I have personally
Yes.
experienced. So, chiropractic work
Yes. Yes.
or massage, like deep tissue massage, or
Yes.
the light touch of like a craniosacral work. So
Exactly.
what are all of these therapies, like what do they have in common? And then where does reflexology really stand out in your opinion?
I love that question. That's an excellent question, because that ties into the whole focus of integrative approaches to dealing with optimum health and wellness. Reflexology is the first line of the treatment process, because what we're dealing with reflexology is we're getting to that point of relieving pain. Then we look at all the other therapies and tie them in as a treatment plan based upon hands-on approaches, using your hands to be about addressing the health problem from the standpoint of we're not using medication. So that's the integrative approach. Reflexology first, and then incorporating all the other modalities. I'll share an example with you of how that works. I had the opportunity to be a part of an exchange program representing America, believe this, in Cuba. And what happened was, in Cuba, they have one of the best integrative combinations of health and wellness, which means that, first of all, they bring together all of the practitioners now at one time. This is for one particular client. All the practitioners that are involved in the treatment are all there. And it's kind of like what we do with surgery. That's kind of where I can kind of define it. It's what we do with surgery. But imagine who is the lead person putting all this together. It's the matriarch of the family. She is the one that is directing what practitioner needs to be working on what particular area that's related to the family member's health problem, with the naturopathic doctor being the guiding force. Because the reason why the matriarch is there, because that's empowering the energy, the spiritual energy connection of oneness with the practitioners and the patient and the family as a whole. And that is one of the most, how can I put it? That's an evolution in terms of healing and seeing how it works when you have the massage therapist on the area that they're designated to work on, the reflexologist working on the area that they're supposed to work on. A Reiki practitioner is doing the energy component on that particular area. And you have them all together. And then after that, you have the herbalist who is putting together all of the herbs that coincide with everything that's needed to bring that healing experience all together. It's something that we cannot possibly imagine, but I do know there are some practitioners here in the States that are looking to move into that direction. But that's a powerful healing process that a patient client can go through when you have everybody there working together, all in oneness. That's what I call collective and cooperative healing process at the same time.
Yeah, we talk about patient-centered care here as a concept too, where we imagine like all of these different practitioners and experts like working as a team. But this definitely brings it to a whole other level, I have to say. And to just go back to reflexology and the roots of it, for people who may not know, each point is connected to an acupuncture or acupressure point that is on a meridian, which are these energy lines on your body that we think are connected to specific flows of energy and to specific organs and organ systems. So by stimulating the feet or the hands or other body parts, you can actually stimulate your internal organs as well. And so my question for you is, how have you seen reflexology work with the diagnoses that we have for different diseases or pain, for example, like and autoimmune diagnosed pain, like a joint or arthritis type of pain, or something like trigeminal neuralgia? How would you approach those things? And do you work with traditional, conventional diagnoses, or do you have your own system?
Basically, we work with traditional, conventional diagnosis because that's what our patient clients understand. But before I get to that, to show you how, I want to give a real visual example of exactly how reflexology works. The way I compare it is like, think about an electrician. When your power goes out in your house, because you're young, this wouldn't affect you. When your power goes out, in the old days, power went out and we had something that was called a little fuse bulb, and we would screw it into the box and the electricity come on. Now you have what's called a circuit breaker and just flip the switch and it comes on. But think about if after you did that, you turned the circuit breaker and it didn't work. You then have to call an electrician to come in. And what the electrician is going to find out is that there's something wrong with the wiring. And so we've got to now be about reconnecting the wiring so that the energy flow can produce the electricity that's needed to turn on the lights. That's the same process that a reflexologist does. And I say that to say it's because we're dealing with the nervous system, which is the energy flow to the brain, which is the communication center. So that's how all the messages are sent. And if you ever look at a chart of the anatomy and look at the nervous system, you see how all of the nerve endings, they begin in your head and run straight through your body, ending in your hands, feet, and ears. So when somebody has a diagnosed health problem, we're going to look for that nerve ending in the hands or feet. that correspond. So say, for example, if somebody had arthritis and they may have arthritis in the knees. So we're going to go to that area on the hand to find where is the blockage in that nerve ending. And we're going to reflex that nerve ending to be about relieving that blockage. So that's what will activate the relieving of the pain. And so that's how we put that together in terms of looking at where the blockage is, because it's the blockage that's causing the pain. But keep in mind that a reflexologist does not operate like allopathic. We have to deal with the whole body because that area is just the pain point. It's not the cause of the pain. So then we have to look at how do we, as we work the whole body, we're looking for that area in the body that is the contributor to the pain in that particular nerve ending. So that's how the whole process works.
I love it. Thank you for the explanation. So what should a client expect from reflexology? Like, first of all, the first session, should there be any pain or sensations or anything that is indicating that it's working or not working? And how long would you typically work with a person for them to really feel relief?
Okay. Each person has a different experience. And for most people, if they are in pain, they automatically get immediate relief from the pain. And I usually suggest that we looking at 5 sessions. And the reason why I'm saying 5 sessions is because what you want to do is during that 5-session time, I'm also instructing them on how to do the actual reflexology technique. And so with the 5 sessions, now you have your medication-free pain relief that you can now utilize yourself every time you start feeling pain. And then we move into putting the treatment program together. And that may be with that particular practitioner based upon the conventional diagnosis. They will work to put their treatment program in place for that particular client. But we have laid the foundation. Now, one of the things that you can tell that a reflexology session is working is usually after the first session, everybody automatically has to go to the bathroom because now we got to start releasing because we've activated, because we were looking for what that blockage was. So now we're activating the releasing of toxins that are in the system. Then the next thing that usually happens is they are able to sleep well at night because now we have calmed the body down. We flushed the body. We put a foundation in place so that now you can start resting. And once you rest, because the other thing that most people don't understand is it does not matter what therapy, what medication, whatever it is you're on, the body will not begin the healing process until it is in a state of rest and relaxation. That has to happen first. And that's what we're doing so that the process with us as hands-on therapists can work together in assisting the body in the healing process.
Yeah, absolutely. All healing happens in the parasympathetic state. So we have to get into that state first. And the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10, is responsible for that. So there's a number of ways of activating that. But it's almost like carrying a load and then expecting yourself to add on like the extra load of healing yourself. But first you have to put the load down. And then it can get a lot easier and it could go a lot faster as well. So I'm curious, are there any contraindications, anybody who shouldn't do it or any specific points that people shouldn't do?
I like that question too. So let me see how I'm going to answer that. The fact that we only work on the hands and feet, and we focus specifically on the nerve endings, I'm going to say there are no contraindications. And the reason being is because we're not working on specific areas of the body where there may be stress, where there may be inflammation, where there may be some type of abnormality that actually touching could be negative to the healing process. Because we're only dealing with the hands and the feet and the ears and the nerve endings, it doesn't activate anything that could, trigger anything that's harmful to the body. A lot of times that question always comes up because of this particular question. Is reflexology a massage? And the answer is no. We are kin to each other, but we're not the same, because massage works with the muscular system and we work with the nervous system. And so in massage, you may have some contraindications in terms of what you can work on and what you can't. But where reflexology is, it's a whole different dynamics.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of times I get these questions about pregnancy, right? Because there are
Yes.
definitely points and acupressure that people can do for specific reasons in pregnancy, but you might want to avoid some of them as well.
Well, that the one thing about pregnancy that everybody wants more than anything is to have their feet taken care of because of the weight that they are carrying. That is very important, in terms of, and so when they say that, and see the other thing, let me share something else too. With acupressure and and acupuncture, you're actually working on the whole body with those nerve endings. And because we are only working on feet and hands, that makes the difference. We don't deal with the whole body from that particular frame of thinking and reference. We're only working on the nerve ending points on the hands and the feet, which makes it different. So when you talk about acupressure and acupuncture, you actually have to work on the whole body for those. And that can cause really contraindication health problems as it relates from that perspective, in terms of, but we don't work the whole body, only the hands and the feet.
Love
the
that.
most overused and under-respected parts of our body, hands and feet.
True, true. So I want to ask you about the business component, which you mentioned. You mentioned 5 sessions and you mentioned, lots of success stories and thousands of patients. So how did you build up your business and what do you attribute your success to?
Oh, that's another question I love. It's a real story behind it. But I started my practice working with senior citizens. That's where I got started. And if you know anything about seniors, they can be very demanding and they're very focused about what they want. And by me working with the seniors, that led to me dealing with their family members, and from their family members, it led to me dealing with various different organizations and things so it evolved from that. But to go back to my seniors, how it really got started was I was doing reflexology and they just loved it. And then they said, "Can you now start taking care of my feet and hands?" And that opened up another business component that I didn't even think about it. It opened it up to manicures and pedicures. So from there, I went into the beauty industry. But remember now, my initial training in reflexology came from the health community. And so I knew nothing about the beauty industry. And so I'm taking, the manicure and the pedicure courses and all of that to be about being able to do manicures and pedicures and incorporate reflexology. But what happened was there was a school that was located on the West Coast in California that came to my area. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and they were doing a course in New York. And so I said, okay, let me go up here and see, how they're integrating reflexology into the beauty industry. So what happened was I took the training program, and then they said to me, well, if you can put together a program in DC, we'll come down and do the program. Never did anything like that before in my life. And all of a sudden, I called together all my massage therapy friends, and we put together this class. And what happened as a result of that, I wound up becoming their East Coast instructor, teaching reflexology in the beauty industry. And then what happened with that was I started getting questions from healthcare practitioners who wanted to know about reflexology from a health perspective. And that's when I put together teaching reflexology in the healthcare community. And that's how the business kind of evolved from teaching, from practice first, then to teaching, and then into research. So that was the evolution. So how it got started was through working with senior citizens. So that's the business component.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that evolution with us. And it just goes to show you that you just never know what will happen. And you just have to follow the breadcrumbs and see what happens. And eventually something amazing comes, probably even better than what you could have imagined. So thank you so much, Njideka, for joining us and sharing your wisdom today and all your knowledge and love for reflexology. And if you have just one more minute left, I'd love to do a rapid round fire of questions with you.
Okay, one thing that I'd like to share with your listeners, in the African tradition, when you visit someone's home for the first time, you bring a gift. And I have a gift for you and your listeners. It's my medication and pain and stress-free relief poster that I will be sharing with you and your listeners. And it can be found at touchology.reflexology.com. That's my gift, my thank you gift for having me on today.
Thank you so much, Njideka. So my first question for you in the rapid style, and you could just shoot your answer out, is what's the number one thing that somebody can do to improve their quality of life right now?
The number one thing to improve your quality of life right now, I would say, take a deep breath and then be thankful.
I love that. And definitely you can do that at no matter where you are, who you are, what you're doing, you can do that and it's accessible. So I love that. Number two is looking back on your journey. Is there anything that you would change, or what would you say to somebody that's looking to go into naturopathy, like looking back now?
If I had to think about it, this is what I would say. If healing is a part of something that you want to do, and you want to do it from the standpoint of naturopath, by all means, do your research. Start looking up information that will apply to what your interest is, and then develop that and learn all you can about that and make that your practice base.
Love that. And finally, just a fun fact about yourself or a hobby that you do. Can you share something with us?
Okay, fun fact, and everybody can follow this. I love being able to have the opportunity to let the little girl inside of me come out and play whenever they want to. That's one of my favorite things to do. And it takes the fact of, how we grow up to be adults and be so serious about everything. When we can learn how to play like children, that adds longevity to our life.
Such a good reminder. So thank you again for coming on. Thank you for your wonderful gift that you mentioned. I'll have all your links in the show notes. And is there anything else you want to share about how people can get in touch?
If you want to get in contact with me, by all means, you can visit me on my website, Focus on Healing marinabooksof.com. And by all means, if you have any questions, go to the contact section and write your questions down, and I will respond back to you.
Awesome. So yeah, I will have all that information in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on, and
Thank you for
I
having
wish
me.
you a wonderful week ahead. Bye.
Thank you, and a happy new year to you and your listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast, and I truly hope you enjoyed the show. If you learned something useful in this episode, please consider giving the show a 5-star rating and a sincere review so that more people can find it, or share it with a friend directly. To get in touch with me, you can find me on social media by looking up my name, Marina Buksov, or email me at marina@rawfork.com. Take good care and see you soon.